really played, but I played that with a noter and with a quill. Noter drone style. Tuned DAA. So it must be a traditional Dulcimer, right? Well, just because, have you watched on YouTube some of these people that take a banjo and put it under their neck and take a fiddle bow and play a banjo under their neck like a fiddle? It's still banjo. That don't mean it's a fiddle just because they can play it under their neck like a banjo. I mean like a fiddle. So in that respect, just because I can play this contraption noter drone style don't mean it's a traditional Dulcimer. And furthermore, in my opinion, it ain't no modern Dulcimer. And so I've had a lot of questions since I started back building Dulcimers again in June, July, somewhere around there. Seems like there's a little more interest in the traditional Dulcimers, and people's wanting to know what the difference is. First thing I want to tell you, if you got a modern Dulcimer, you can still play it like a traditional Dulcimer. Just like I just played this contraption like a traditional Dulcimer. You can still play a modern Dulcimer traditional style, and it's a lot of fun. And to play a simple song, it's pretty easy with them. But there's I've been playing since 2006, and they still songs that give me trouble. So playing noter drone style it's fun and it's a challenge. But anyway, that ain't part of my, that ain't why I'm making this video. Is it's try to explain to some people that are new to traditional Dulcimers. Now, you might notice that we spell, the traditional community spells Dulcimers D-U-L-C-I-M-O-R-E instead of M-E-R like a modern Dulcimer. And sometimes we say Dulcimore instead of Dulcimer. And my friend Dan Cox, Dulcimore Dan Cox, he started doing that back several years ago to try to differentiate the traditional Dulcimers from modern Dulcimers. But even more so now, we've got instruments that I don't even, that are being made that I don't even, in my opinion, they don't even qualify to be a modern Dulcimer. But before I go any farther, I want you to know, if you enjoy playing what you got, if you got a contraption like this and you can lay it in your lap and play it noter drone style and play it good and stuff, and that's what you have fun with, by all means, keep playing. Have some fun. Play it. If you got one of them modern Dulcimer contraptions that's got chromatic frets and 6 strings with geared tuners, that's what you have fun with, play the far out of that thing. But anyway, I had to write me a list because I'm bad to forget stuff. So the first thing I want to address, though, before I get into explaining this, is most of the people that are in our traditional Dulcimer community are pretty much historians. So, and I myself, I think I looked at in person and in pictures of over 300 traditional instruments that were made before the 1930s, at least, but in pictures. And so these qualifications that we came up with, the traditional community came up with, was from, let's say, excuse me, let's say 95% of the old traditional Dulcimers, before they began using modern frets, probably 95%, maybe as much as 99%, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to say 95% of those had these qualifications. And those qualifications were, they all had staple frets. These are modern frets. I'll show you staple frets in a minute. They had non-geared tuners. See, these are geared tuners. They have a mechanical advantage because you turn this one full turn and this don't turn but about a fourth of a turn or something. But anyway, these are modern geared tuners. They were diatonic fretted. This is chromatic fretted, meaning it's got all the major and minor frets. If you want to think about it as a piano, the white keys and the black keys on a piano. Well, this has got the white keys and the black keys on the piano, where a traditional Dulcimore only has the white keys. The other qualification is a full-length fretboard. So what does that mean? A full-length fretboard means that the fretboard goes from the tail to the end of the body. As you can see, this definitely don't have a full-length fretboard. It also has a neck. Having a neck disqualifies it. A neck that extends past the sound box disqualifies it from being a traditional dulcimer and a modern dulcimer, in my opinion. To make a traditional dulcimer, I've got to make it out what we call traditional Appalachian wood, meaning wood from the Appalachian region that's native to the Appalachian region. This would qualify on that part. And the last thing is no wound strings. This guitar has wound strings on it. I'll show you some more wound strings in a minute. But you know, they were some wound sinew strings or something like that long time ago, but I've never seen a traditional old dulcimer in pictures. Sometimes strings will be rusted into, but I've never seen any with anything but solid strings, no wound strings. But those qualifications are what we are the standards for a traditional Dulcimore. So the things that make this not a traditional Dulcimore, I done told you about the tuning keys. It's got wound strings, that won't qualify. It's got all the frets, that won't qualify. The fretboard don't extend all the way to the tailpiece, that don't qualify. It's got a neck going past the body of the dulcimer or the guitar, that don't qualify. And it's got smooth sides. It don't have fiddle sides. That's one thing I forgot to mention. Traditional dulcimer, one of the qualifications is to have what we call fiddle sides, and I'll show you those in a minute. But this don't, in my opinion, this don't qualify as a modern dulcimer. Reason being, it's got chromatic frets. It's got a neck that goes past the body of the guitar, and the fretboard don't extend all the way to the tailpiece. So I'm going to get my phone and turn it around in just a second. I promise you that. But one more thing I want to mention is, I mentioned that probably 95% of the old dulcimers were made this way, with those qualifications I told you about. But there was a few old dulcimers back in the mid-1800s, I think, or late 1800s. Somebody invented some tuning keys for a violin, what we around here call fiddle. Had two on each side, and you can find some older Dulcimores, a few of the vintage ones by certain makers that had those on them. I even seen pictures of one, is all I can remember, of an old dulcimer made in the mid-1800s that had chromatic frets. They were staple frets, but they had all of them, as I said, the white keys and the black keys. And they are, more so it seems like the Virginia dulcimers, you do see several of them that had smooth sides instead of the fiddle edges. And but there's oddballs, is what I'm trying to say. So if me or Dan Cox or John Knopf or Ken Longfield, Ken Hume, if any of me or my friends that build the traditional Dulcimores, if we're doing a replica and it had modern style mechanical keys on it, to be a true replica, naturally we'd have to put those on it. But just to be a general, qualify as a general traditional instrument, it needs the qualifications that I mentioned. So I'm going to put this contraption up and bounce you around a little bit, but I want to show you a few instruments. So that looks like a Dulcimer, don't it? I built this, and if I live long enough, I'll probably build another one. You notice it's got a fretboard's not very tall on it, is it? But I lay it on my lap and play it, and I can play this after I practice a little bit. I can play it Notre Dame style, or I can play chords on it. Hey, look, it's got traditional zither pins on it. Those are non-mechanical. Those are considered traditional. So it must be a traditional Dulcimer, ain't it? Nope. Because as you can see, it's got the modern fret wire, like that resonator guitar I just played had. And as you can see, it's got all the frets. So that disqualifies it from being traditional. But as you can see, the fretboard don't go all the way to the end. So that disqualifies it from being a traditional Dulcimer. Well, also you can see it's got smooth sides, meaning that the top and the back are even with the side. So that disqualifies it from being traditional. But also, since the day I made this, and I've made 3 or 4 before that, I've never called this thing a Dulcimer. Even though I would tune it DAA and I can play Dulcimer chords with it, and like I said, with enough practice I could play it Notre Dame. I used to actually play one similar to this in church that was chromatic, and I played it Notre Dame or finger dance style in church. But it's not even, in my opinion, it's not even a modern Dulcimer. And what makes it not a modern Dulcimer is the fretboard don't go all the way to the end, and it's got all the frets. So here's a Dulcimer that my friend Bill let me borrow. It was made by a guy in the county here, and I'd never heard of him and didn't know somebody else that once made Dulcimers here. But this is a perfect example of a modern Dulcimer. It's got mechanical tuners. It's got smooth sides. It does have modern frets, which makes it a modern Dulcimer. But you notice, let me scoot this over here beside this. For those that are unfamiliar with Dulcimers, notice it's missing one there, 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 compared to this one. This is what they call the diatonic fret pattern. And that's only the modern frets, or not the major frets, I'm sorry. That's only the major frets, where this one has the major and minor frets. This one is all major frets. That, as you can see, the fretboard goes all the way to the tail. It has what we call a strum hollow, but the fretboard is continuous, and the fretboard don't extend out past the neck like on that resonator guitar I had. So this is a perfect example of what a modern Dulcimer should be. When you get to putting, some people will put maybe just this fret and this fret. When you go to adding extra frets, it's my opinion that you've just changed a modern Dulcimer into something that I call a lap guitar. So this is a Dulcimer that Dulcimer Dan made me. As you can see, it's got the fretboard that extends all the way from one end to the other of the body, but it don't extend past the body. It has primitive wood tuning pegs. No mechanical advantage there. It has staple frets made out of music wire and hammered in. They're just, you cut you a piece of wire and make it the shape of a staple and hammer it in. And it has, notice this one has the top and the back overhangs the side. So that's what we call fiddle edges. So that's a true traditional Dulcimer. And here's one I made. Pretty much the only major difference in this one I made, other than size, don't matter about the size, is this one has the old-timey zither tuning pins. You use you find my little key here, put this little key on it, and you tune it. And these maybe even predate using wood pegs on a Dulcimore. I don't know. We find them in pictures and information around the same time period, but these have no mechanical advantage. So that would be the major difference between this one and the one Dan made. But like I said, if I was making a replica of, for instance, if I was making a replica of a Galax Dulcimer, the Galax players for years have added a fret right there. So if I was making a true Galax replica, I would need to add a fret there. If I think Kendra Ward's family from up in Ohio, if I was making a replica of one of her family's Dulcimers, I think they used those little violin tuners that would be similar to something like that, except there are two keys made into one bracket on it. But if I was making a replica of Ward family Dulcimer, like Kendra's family's got, to be correct, it would need that mechanical tuner, which still would qualify that particular version to be a traditional Dulcimore. Kendra, if you watch this, I think it was your family Dulcimers that had that. But anyway, I'll go over them for you one more time. Lap guitar, modern Dulcimer, traditional Dulcimore. But as I said earlier, if you got something like that and you enjoy playing it, whether you play it, I don't care how you play it. It tickles me when people make music. So you go ahead and make music however you want to. I'm just doing this as some people ask me my opinion, so there's my opinion. Now go play some music and have some fun.